Well, hello again. I've recently did a couple of videos on the UAP report that was released by the Office of National Intelligence, I think it was, on the 25th of June 2021. This was also released on the same day. This is something slightly different, but it relates to the same subject. The Deputy Secretary of Defence, and that's where you can find them. Memorandum for Senior Pentagon Leadership, Commanders of the Combatant Commands, Defence Agency and DoD Field Activity Directors. Okay, so that's pretty much to everybody that's something to do with the military. Yeah, the American military. Subject: Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Assessments. Recent report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The Office of the Director of National the ODNI highlights the current challenges associated with assessing unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, occurring on or near Department of Defence training ranges and installations. It is critical that the United States maintain operations security and safety at DoD ranges. To this end, it is equally critical that all US military air crews or government personnel report whenever aircraft or other devices interfere with military training. This includes the observation and reporting of UAPs. Okay, so this is this is definitely not suggesting they're looking at an ET hypothesis, is it? Because ET can be visiting anywhere on the planet, but they're only interested in DoD training ranges, on or near DoD training ranges. Okay, so they don't think it's anything to do with ET. They think it's somebody spying on them. That's what that means. They think it's Russia or China is spying on them, and they want to prove that, presumably, and then embarrass them into not doing it. But of course, America spies on the Russians and the Chinese as well. So, you know, what can they expect, really? So the report. Hang on, let's just move this up a bit. The report also confirmed that the scope of UAP activity expands significantly beyond the purview of the Secretary of the Navy, who heads the UAP Task Force, the UATPF. That's peculiar, isn't it? Why would you think that would fall under the purview of the Secretary of the Navy? Unidentified aerial phenomena. You'd think that would fall under the purview of the Air Force, wouldn't you? Consistent with these recommendations and to improve partnership with the ODNI and other non-DoD organisations, I direct the Office of the Undersecretary of Defence for Intelligence and Security to develop a plan to formalise the mission currently performed by the UAPTF. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because what that's saying is that there's probably a couple of guys that fall under the purview of the Secretary of the Navy, who formed this unidentified aerial phenomena task force. I heard it was 2 people. And it said they should develop a plan to formalise the mission currently performed by the unidentified aerial phenomena task force. So this unidentified aerial phenomena task force is not a formal branch of the Navy. It's not a formal task force. It's you and you see what you can find out about this stuff. You know, so they're talking now about formalising it, actually having people tasked as their job to look at it. So what this is saying at the moment is it's informal. So the people are not full-time. This task force is not a full-time thing. This is a couple of people doing some stuff in their spare time. or when they're not particularly busy. It's an informal arrangement. They need to formalise it to actually have a task force as such. So the task force doesn't exist, really, is what this is saying. They should establish procedures to synchronise collection, reporting and analysis of the unidentified aerial phenomena problem set, and to establish recommendations. I'm reading this with the camera viewfinder, so apologies for the if I sound a bit illiterate. And to establish recommendations for securing military test and training ranges. Again, paragraph 1 tells you they don't think it's extraterrestrial. Because if they thought it was extraterrestrial in nature, this unidentified aerial phenomenon issue, they would be establishing recommendations for securing the planet. They'd be interested in securing the planet from hostile aliens. Not that that would be possible, of course. They wouldn't. It wouldn't. If they thought it was extraterrestrial, they wouldn't be establishing recommendations for securing military test and training ranges. They think they're being spied on by the Russians, the Chinese, by terrestrial, potential enemies on Earth. They're not remotely interested. This has got nothing whatsoever to do with extraterrestrials. Can I move that down? Up a bit, rather. Okay, and they want to identify requirements for the establishment and operation of the new activity to include the organisational alignment, resources and staffing required, as well as any necessary authorities and a timeline for implementation. So what that's saying is they need to find out exactly what they want to do. They need to sit around a table and say, right, okay, this is how we're going to collect this information, but what we need to do is actually allocate staff. Remember, previously it said it was informal. They need to formalise it. So they need to find out what sort of resources they need for collecting this information and actually allocate staff to do it. So the current task force, again, which I've heard is 2 people, are not aren't really a task force as such, because what they need to do here is to have a look at the resources and staffing required. So how many people do they need to do this? They need to actually form a task force. So this task force doesn't actually exist at the moment, officially, formally. As well as any necessary authorities and a timeline for implementation. So they're going to say, okay, how long is it going to take to get this together? It should be developed in coordination with the principal staff assistants, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the secretaries of the military departments, and the commanders of the combatant commands, and with the Department of National Intelligence and other relevant interagency partners. Okay, so that's saying, okay, we're going to contact all these other people, probably defence contractors as well, that might be testing sophisticated military equipment, and they're going to say, keep an eye out for anything you think is unusual, for anything that you think might be keeping an eye on us, or something that might be demonstrating what we think would be technology that it would be worth us knowing about. Yeah. All members of the department will utilise these processes to ensure that the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or its follow-on activity, so that means that these 2 guys are currently called the UATPF, but it's not a formal thing. When they formalise it, it may be called something else. And that will be the follow-on activity, so they might expand it to maybe 4 guys. has reports of unidentified aerial phenomena observation within 2 weeks of an occurrence. So they're just going to say to the Army and the Air Force, you know, when you're out doing stuff, keep an eye out, let us know. Within 2 weeks, if you see anything that's unusual, submit any evidence, any, you know, any footage that they might have, similar to the stuff that we've seen that they considered evidence for unidentified aerial phenomenon previously that was very easily debunked by almost everybody on YouTube, apart from the serious woo-woos that are wholly invested in it being ET. Apparently Richard Dolan has been given a piece of paper. It's a leaked report, and it was given to him by someone who had it given to them by a friend of their sister's, Gibbon, I think, is the way that goes. And it's absolute nonsense, of course. And Dolan says he can't speak for the provenance of it. Of course he can't. But he supports it, and he promotes it because he doesn't want to get a real job. He said so himself in those words. You know, he doesn't want to get a job. This UFO ET stuff is his living. All this stuff that's just come out with regard the unidentified aerial phenomenon stuff that came out on the 25th has nothing whatsoever to do with ET. And he needs to keep tickling people's interest. You know, all the people, all the woo-woos that love all this ET stuff, he needs to keep tickling their interest, because what's been released, this document here on the 25th, and the previous document, actually kills all the UFO ET stuff stone dead. So Dolan has to try and sort of keep it afloat, if you like, by introducing this fictional nonsense that he's recently introduced. A bit like the leak from you know, those papers from that admiral from that was a load of old rubbish as well. You know, I can't even remember the guy's name. You know. But that was another Dolan thing, wasn't it? And that's just to keep the woo-woos, you know, clutching at straws. You know, they're all hoping to keep this alive. Oh, it's ET. We got to get disclosure, and of course, there's nothing to disclose. So you know, it's really quite embarrassing to watch Dolan talking about this bloody nonsense. Anyway, I'm sure the woo-woos would have seen Dolan's nonsense, and that's exactly what it is. Anytime somebody says this was given to me and they had it given to them, and there's no provenance to the document, there's no evidence that the document is real, and it says ET, you know, exotic propulsion, crash craft, you can put a line through it. It's absolute rubbish. It's been introduced by, it's science fiction claptrap that's been introduced to try and keep this ridiculous ET UFO nonsense afloat. And it's all dying in the derriere, I think, with these documents. You can clearly see from this document here, they don't think it's ET. It's all about being spied on by foreign adversaries, and you know, they're not saying anything whatsoever about keeping the planet safe. They're interested in safeguarding military training areas. They think they're being watched by the Russians or the Chinese. And they want to see if the Russians or the Chinese have got any kind of breakthrough technology. And let's not forget that they're very clever people. You know, don't underestimate the Russians and don't underestimate the Chinese. And of course, you know, being spied on by the Russians or the Chinese is many orders of magnitude more likely than being spied on by ET. All right, well, it's only a very short video. I just thought I'd pass a few comments on this document I stumbled across the other day. So I hope you found that interesting, and thanks for watching. Maybe I'll catch you again.